3 spine-chilling true stories of sinister isolation. Haunting secrets revealed in abandoned homes. Clara never thought her life would lead her to this point. A single mother in her late 30s, she was used to balancing work shifts at the diner with helping Emily through her tumultuous teenage years. But there was still a thin fabric of hope as she navigated this quaint Midwestern town. Even as cicadas buzzed ceaselessly in the scorching day, that delicate stability began to shatter the night she found the abandoned house. The moment Clara and Emily stepped onto the overgrown lawn, a chill slithered down her spine. The frayed edges of reality began to blur as they approached the peeling paint and darkened windows. Inside, the air pressed around them, thick with dust and the scent of rot. What had lived here? What nightmares had transpired in the shadows? Clara's heart raced as the whispers of its past began to unfurl, sending their first shivers up her back. They never leave. The faded scrawl on the wall echoed in her mind. "Mom, can we go?" Emily's voice trembled, breaking through the silence. But Clara needed something that could revive the connection with her daughter. She gestured towards a crumbled photo, a ghostly family frozen in time. As they sifted through the remnants of the house, they unearthed drawings and faded letters, all colored by sorrow. With each moment in the house, an unsettling presence coiled around Clara's chest. Then the first note arrived, slipped defiantly under their door, taunting her with its message. "You'll regret this." It felt like a dark omen, and the shadows of their own neighborhood turned hostile. Neighbors who once offered friendly waves now cast suspicious glances, the air thick with rising tensions. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a surge of dread, Clara and Emily made their way back to the house, a mixture of fear and curiosity driving them deeper inside. The morning sunlight had faded, leaving behind a suffocating darkness that seemed alive, breathing down their necks. Clara thought she saw something move in the corner, a figure lurking where the shadows twisted strangely. A low, sinister laugh echoed, sending her heart into a frenzied beat. "Mom, do you hear that?" Emily's eyes widened, fear etched across her features. A little nobility in Clara fought against the panic. "Stay close," she murmured, making her way to the darkened hall. She felt it then, the weight of unseen eyes boring into them, a profound sense of being watched. The dread curve of the walls closed in, and without realizing it, they were trapped in an ancient prison of their own mirage. Suddenly, there was a scraping sound, followed by silence. Clara's breath caught, heart pounding as she turned to see the front door swing wide open. A neighbor someone she'd always trusted stood framed in the doorway, shadows cloaking their features. The moment stretched, reality seemed to twist. Were the whispers from the house, or was the true horror just outside the door? Before she could gather her thoughts, the figure began to speak, and the windows quaked with unrestrained terror. The neighbor stepped inside, the oppressive darkness of the house swallowing them whole. Clara's heart raced as confusion intermingled with fear. Mr. Thompson, once a familiar face, now felt like a stranger draped in shadows. "You shouldn't be here," he warned, his voice low and gravelly. "Not in this place. It's not safe." "What do you mean?" Clara tried to sound steady, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. Emily clung to her, eyes wide and searching. "You don't know what you've dragged back into your lives," he continued, his gaze flitting nervously to the corners of the room. "It knows you're here. It has a hunger." Clara swallowed hard. "What are you talking about? What does it want?" "It wants you to leave. But it won't let you go." His voice wavered along with the shadows, thickening the air with a sense of impending doom. Emily tugged at Clara's sleeve, her voice barely a whisper. "Mom, I don't like this." Clara fought against the rising tide of panic. She took a step forward, trying to hold onto the fragments of reason within the darkness. We just wanted to see what was happening. We're not afraid of some stupid ghost stories. A low, mocking laugh echoed off the walls, chilling Clara to her core. It's not a story. You think you're in control? These tendrils are reaching out and they're already inside of you. Mr. Thompson's eyes locked onto Emily, and for a moment, they shone with an eerie glint. That girl, she's different. It senses her spirit. Get out, Clara shouted, thrusting her fear into the words. Get out of my house. As she stepped back, the room shifted. The air thickened, and the very walls seemed to convulse with a sinister energy. Their surroundings warped. The house came alive, groaning under the weight of hidden truths buried for far too long. Mr. Thompson staggered, losing his composure. You should listen. It's got a hold of you, drowning you. The front door slammed shut, a deafening crack that resonated as if the house were screaming. Clara's breath quickened, desperation kicking in. What do we do? She pleaded, turning to Mr. Thompson. But he had already vanished into the shadowy corners, leaving only an oppressive silence. Mom! Emily's voice trembled. We need to get out of here. Clara scanned the room, searching for the way they'd come. The hallway twisted around them, an unending maze of darkness. The whispers returned, louder. The words now indistinguishable yet laced with malevolence. Something was shifting in the back of her mind, an awareness of the horrors that unfolded here, a traumatic history intertwined with her own. In the gloom, she glimpsed the corner where she thought she saw movement, something stirring, something alive. Emily, don't move, she murmured, feeling dread crawl up her spine. They had crossed a boundary, something had been invited into their lives. Suddenly, the house shuddered violently, as if it were alive and responding to their presence. Clara grabbed Emily's hand, grounding herself. We're getting out right now, she commanded, the firmness in her voice an effort to drown the chaos rising within. As they navigated through the hall, the walls pulsed like the heart of a beast awakening. Shadows flickered, darting around them, whispering their secrets. Clara's pulse thundered in her ears. They needed to escape before it consumed them whole. Tension hung thick in the air. Would they make it out in time? Suddenly, from behind them, a voice, familiar yet foreign, wove through the air. You can't leave, Clara, not without facing the truth. A figure emerged from the darkness, someone Clara knew too well. Emily! Clara screamed as her daughter's hand slipped from her grasp. The figure enveloped the girl, shadows swallowing her scream, leaving Clara alone in the dark, horror clawing at her throat. Panic clawed at her insides. Emily! She called, but the abyss answered, shrouding her cries in silence. What had she unleashed? In that moment, clarity struck. She needed answers from the house. It held the key to their survival. Summoning what was left of her courage, Clara stepped deeper into the shadows, determined to find her daughter and confront whatever malevolence awaited. But what she didn't know was that the house had been waiting for her all along, its darkness hungry and eager for her choice. Would she find Emily in time, or would they both be trapped forever? Clara's heart thundered in her chest as she moved deeper into the hallway, the shadows pressing in on her from all sides. The walls groaned as though alive, breathing a chilling fog that wrapped around her like a shroud. She fought against the rising dread, each step echoing through the suffocating silence, a reminder of her daughter left behind. Emily! She screamed, her voice cracking under the weight of despair. The house seemed to absorb her cries, mocking them, twisting them into whispers that taunted her. The bluish shadows flickered sporadically, revealing unfathomable shapes that danced just out of sight. Clara pressed forward, using the walls for support, feeling the cold seep through her skin as if the darkness was feeding off her dread. The last she saw of Emily haunted her, the look on her daughter's face, wide-eyed and terrified, as she was swallowed by the figure. Clara's gut twisted. I'll find you. The words echoed back to her, distorted and menacing. She passed a doorway that led into a room suffused with a dim reflection. Dusty mirrors lined the walls, and Clara caught fleeting glimpses of movement in their cracked surfaces, figures too murky to identify. swirling like smoke. She averted her gaze, shaking her head as if she could dislodge the nightmares pressing against her mind. "Just keep going," she muttered to herself, forcing each foot forward as the whispers grew louder, weaving a tapestry of voices, each echo carrying a tone of agony and resentment. They pulled at her sanity, trying to drown her in fear. "No, please," she half-shouted, half-pleaded. A burst of anger formed within her. "I won't let you take her." She clenched her fists, determination surging through her, chasing the fear away for a moment. Suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, a small figure flitted against the wall. Clara turned sharply, heart racing anew. "Emily!" The figure was gone, but she could have sworn she heard a giggle, light yet mirthless, fueled by something sinister. The sound was so out of place that it sent a jolt through her. Clara's pulse quickened. She was being lured, drawn deeper into the twisted innards of the house by her own sense of dread. "Mom!" It wasn't just in her head. Clara could hear Emily's muffled cries, distant yet clear, vibrating through the very floor beneath her feet. She sprinted through the hall, her breath hitching as she spotted a door at the end, slightly ajar. A sliver of light spilled into the darkness, flickering like a candle in a storm. Was there hope, or was it yet another trick of the house? Clara reached for the handle, its surface cold and slick under her fingers, and swung the door wide open. The light burst forth, illuminating a scene that froze her in her tracks. Emily stood in the center of the room, but she was different, staring blankly ahead, eyes glassy, as if her spirit had been drained. To Clara's horror, the walls flickered like they were breathing, pulsating in rhythm with her daughter's lifeless stance. Clara felt the weight of despair crash over her like a tidal wave. "Emily!" she cried, panic skimming raw through her voice. The shadows danced faster now, swarming like angry hornets. "Mom!" Emily's voice drifted, distant as the light flickered. Clara stepped forward, every instinct screaming at her to run, but she steeled herself against the terror pooling in her stomach. Suddenly, the walls began to close in, the darkness pressuring her as if it was alive. Whether in a warning or a lure, she couldn't tell. Clara knew she had to act. There was no time. "Emily, come to me. Fight it." But the shadows responded quicker than she anticipated. They surged forward, an unrelenting tide, crawling toward her daughter. Emily blinked slowly, finally shifting her gaze toward Clara, but the warmth in her eyes felt distant, muted by whatever darkness had stolen her away. "Stay back!" Clara shouted, launching herself across the room, desperation fueling her. She grasped her daughter, yanking her away from the consuming shadows, but it was too late. As Clara clung to Emily, the shadows cracked open over her shoulder like a monstrous maw, eager. The house screamed, not with sound but with a pulse, pushing them into a deeper abyss. "Run!" Clara's scream rent the air, but the house answered with a low growl, shaking beneath her feet. The night was far from over. Whatever had claimed this house was more powerful than she'd realized, and Clara was left with a single, harrowing thought. Would they ever escape? As darkness clawed around them, a chilling realization set in. The house wasn't just a place. It was a living entity, a predator with a hunger for those who dared call it home. But what if this was their only chance? What if the truth became their only salvation, or the key to eternal damnation? Would they triumph over the darkness, or become just another whisper in its endless scream? Clara felt the shadows tighten around her like a noose, constricting, twisting, devouring the fading light. Her heart raced as the pulsating walls ever so slightly inched closer, the dark inviting her to succumb. With Emily's glassy eyes fixed on her, Clara's resolve hardened. She couldn't lose her daughter to this nightmare. Not now. "Emily!" she cried, desperately shaking her daughter. "Fight it, please." But Emily remained unresponsive, caught in a stupor, her spirit drifting somewhere beyond Clara's reach. The shadows coiled closer, circling the girl like a predator waiting to strike. Clara could feel the weight of dark intent radiating from the walls, suffocating her hopes with a chilling dread. A surge of rage fueled Clara's movements. "Get away from her!" she screamed, launching herself toward the pulsing walls. She felt the cold slip of the shadowy tendrils as they brushed against her skin, an icy touch that sent a jolt of panic through her. Suddenly, something cracked, a sound like bones snapping. The air thickened, swirling with anger. Clara stumbled backward, glancing over her shoulder. Behind her, the door frame was shifting, narrowing, twisting into a grotesque shape, blocking their only escape. Mom Emily's voice a mere whisper, touched by a sense of dread and longing. No more life, only a plea. Clara's resolve faltered as the darkness closed in, the very air seeming to thrum with malice. "Stay with me, Emily. Focus on my voice," Clara pleaded, clutching her daughter's shoulders. "We're going to get out." She forced Emily to meet her gaze, hoping to break through the fog. But Emily's face melted into a patchwork of fear and confusion as her limbs trembled, caught between worlds. The shadows hissed around them, a creeping sound that slurped up the remaining sanity in the room. The air crackled with pressure, making Clara's ears pop, and she knew they were losing the battle. "Find the light," Clara shouted, suddenly recalling the tales she had heard, the ones that told of hope amidst overwhelming darkness. With no other choice, Clara spun, her gaze darting around the room, searching for anything that might help. The cracked mirrors lining the walls seemed to shimmer, teasing glimpses of light beyond their depths. Could it be? Felt like a flicker, a hint of salvation. Over there. Clara pointed to the mirror directly across the room, whose surface shimmered like water disturbed by a gentle breeze. "We can use it." She yanked Emily towards it, but just as they reached the mirror's shimmering edge, the shadows surged. They lunged with a ferocity Clara hadn't anticipated, snatching at her legs like clawed hands reaching for flesh. "No!" Clara screamed, kicking free as she struggled to maintain her hold on Emily, who was still in a trance. The shadows recoiled slightly, as though they were startled, but quickly retaliated, their whispers rising to a crescendo that clawed at Clara's ears. The mirror pulsed with an unsettling light, reflecting Clara's frantic face and her daughter's haunted expression. "Emily, look, you have to focus on the mirror." But Emily was fading, drifting further into the abyss, her eyes now vacant. In one desperate move, Clara took a step back and thrust herself at the mirror, using her body as a barrier, hoping to shield her daughter from the grasping darkness. Yet rather than shattering, the surface rippled like liquid, absorbing her plunge and pulling her deeper, as if the mirror was a portal to another world. "Mom!" Emily cried out, her voice breaking through the haze, and for a heartbeat, Clara felt warmth seep in, a connection. But then the shadows roared, surging forth to reclaim what they thought was theirs. Clara grasped at the walls, fighting to pull Emily away from the grasp of the malevolent darkness. She felt a tug, a relentless pull, as if the house itself sought to wrench them apart. "Stay with me," she screamed, panic surging anew. "Mom, I can't." Emily's voice cracked, each word a weight pushing her down, smothering. Tremors coursed through Clara, her vision blurring. She could feel the shadows closing in, their malevolence suffocating, devious whispers circling like vultures. Just as despair threatened to engulf her, she noticed a glimmer of truth, a piece of the shattered mirror reflecting a bright image of their home. Their real home, shedding the veil of shadow. "Remember," Clara shouted, fighting to keep Emily's focus. "Think of our home, our light." The shadows recoiled at the mention, hissing like tormented souls. But Clara could feel their fury rising. Time was running out. In that moment, she realized there might be one last chance to break this curse. One that lay not just in the physical escape, but in the depths of Emily's spirit. Clara clutched her daughter's hands. Would love and memories be enough to vanquish the darkness? The agonizing reality settled heavily, and as the shadows swelled for one final assault, Clara had to choose. Would she fight to save her daughter at the cost of her own humanity, even if it meant drawing the darkness into herself? Would she sacrifice everything for the ultimate chance at redemption? As the shadows swept once more, Clara felt the answer slip through her fingers, and then, Silence descended, wrapping them in a cocoon of chaos as the house held its breath. Would Clara's love be strong enough to shatter the sinister isolation that closed in around them? The mirror's surface felt warm against Clara's frantic hands, as if it pulsed with a heartbeat of its own. The shadows roared in rage, their darkness swirling furiously, clawing at Clara's resolve like a storm testing the strength of a lighthouse. "Think, Emily. Just think of home," Clara shouted, her voice splintering into the chaotic symphony of hisses and whispers that filled the air. Suddenly, the shadows stilled for a fleeting moment, almost as if they were listening. Clara dared to hope. Emily's vacated eyes flickered, a spark of recognition surfacing beneath the layers of shadow. "Mom, the garden," Emily's voice shattered through the fog, weak yet persistent. Clara felt her heart leap. Their garden, bright and alive, bloomed full of color with flowers they had planted together, memories pushing against the walls of despair. The light spilled over her thoughts, illuminating the paths they had walked, the laughter they had shared. The house shuddered as if it too sensed the power of their bond. Just focus on the flowers. The sunlight. Clara pulled on that golden thread of memory, envisioning the blooms bursting in all their glory. She felt an electric charge ripple through the air, a challenge sent into the heavy quiet where the shadows loomed. "Moom," Emily whimpered, no longer drifting but fighting, digging her heels against the pull. Clara's grip tightened around her hands, heart igniting with a fierce love that churned in her chest. But the shadows lunged again, rushing like a tidal wave, a hideous growl escaping the walls. Clara could feel the chilling fingers latch onto her, freezing her blood as if they sought to pull her into an eternity of suffering. "No!" Clara screamed, swinging Emily back against the mirror's shimmering surface. "Stay with me. Feel the warmth." Emily blinked, the lucidity sharpening in her stare, and Clara saw the tiniest flicker of hope. The mirror began to glow, brightening, sending fissures through the oppressive dark that threatened to consume them. "Daylight. Mom, it hurts," Emily cried, as the shadows shrieked, enraged by the intrusion of light. Clara winced at the sound, a chorus of suffering that echoed through her bones. "Hold on, Emily. Remember the sun, the way it felt on your skin." Clara pushed back against the shadows with everything she had. The vivid images of sun-soaked days, of laughter ringing through the garden, poured from her heart. Would it be enough? A crack splintered through the air as the mirror's light surged, forcing the shadows back momentarily. It pulsed, illuminating the room like a lighthouse beacon, casting the once dreadful walls in a soft glow. Within that space, Clara felt the world outside the life they had shared, vibrant and true. But just as Emily seemed to grasp onto that spark, the darkness roared back with a vengeance. Tendrils lashed out, slinging toward Clara and Emily, seeking to pull them apart, to suffocate their bond. Clara's breath hitched. The fear clawed at her throat, stifling every thought other than the urgent need to protect her daughter. She could sense the shadows recoiling, trying to recoil, as if afraid of the brightness. "Think of the moments, Em. Our picnic at the lake, the sunlight dancing on the water." Emily's expression flickered again. She whimpered softly, but finally managed a nod, fighting against the shadows that sought to suffocate her memories. The shadows gasped, recoiling slightly, the light pushing them back, revealing glimpses of the true room they were trapped in. But the darkness wasn't ready to let them go. A fierce howl erupted from beyond the confines of the mirror, a banshee wail that threatened to tear apart the very fabric of Clara's resolve. The shadows writhed intensely, ridged and convulsing like an angry beast, as tendrils lunged for them anew. "Hold on, Emily. We have to break through," Clara yelled, desperation sharpening her voice. In an electrifying moment, she felt the warmth of the light pooling between them and the mirror, the connection blossoming with potential. But a choice loomed perilously close. If she triggered the light, would she risk everything? Could she really pull Emily through, leaving herself behind? "Push!" Clara shouted, surrendering to the light with every ounce of strength. She thrust her and Emily's hands into the mirror, praying for salvation against the dark storm raging around them. Suddenly, a thunderous crack erupted and Clara gasped, the mirror wailing as the darkness overwhelmed them. The walls twisted, and she felt the moment slipping away, the thin threads of hope swirling into despair once more. And in that fleeting second, the world around them shattered like glass, splinters of light and darkness melding together. Clara's last vision was Emily's eyes, full of fear and resolve right before everything dissolved into chaos. What awaited them in the depths of that fracturing moment, amidst the swirling light and shadow? Was there a way out, or had they sealed their fate within the mirror's dark embrace? Clara felt her body being pulled at an impossible angle, fissures of light and dark slicing through her senses. The chaos roared around her like a tempest. She couldn't grasp anything. Couldn't hold on to anything real, not the warm sun nor the garden filled with laughter. The image slipped through her fingers like grains of sand, and all she could hear was a cacophony of whispers, each one more tortured than the last. Somewhere, a pulse throbbed, intensified by shadowy tendrils reaching out to tether themselves to her fading strength. Panic surged through her veins as she fought against the encroaching darkness, gasping for air that was thick and suffocating. "Mom!" Emily's voice sliced through the chaos, fragile yet piercing, urging Clara back to the heart of their bond. "I'm scared, stay with me. Hold on." Clara cried, though her words felt hollow, echoes fading into the void. The shadows pulsed with her voice, pulling tighter, wrapping around them as if trying to drown out any flicker of light. Suddenly, memories flooded her like a tidal wave. A summer campfire, the crackle of wood, the taste of roasted marshmallows, comfort twisted into a nightmare. A chill raced up her spine as the shadows whispered twisted truths, revealing desperate echoes of despair. Did isolation twist the heart into something monstrous? Had she barely escaped the prison of her own mind? "Emily, remember our times in the garden? The sunflowers?" She pressed through gritted teeth, forcing herself to hold on to the images, the warmth they shared. "You loved how they danced in the breeze." "Mom, I see them, but it's so dark." With sudden clarity, Clara realized she was losing Emily, losing both of them. The shadows grinned, dark forces feeding on that fear. The memory of the mirror's light, strong and radiant, surged through her heart as she fought back. "Stay with me," Clara shouted, her heart pounding, a desperate drum in her chest. "We can beat them, Em. Focus on the light." As if in response, the darkness recoiled, shrieking in denial. The oppressive weight of despair felt like a ton of bricks pressing against her chest. Clara clawed at the edges of reality, searching for that thread, anything to keep Emily anchored, to keep herself from slipping away. But the mirror's surface began to tremble, a violent quake sending shockwaves through the air. The whispers spiraled into frantic screams. They were losing ground, and Clara could feel herself unraveling. A blinding flash shot from the depths of the mirror, and Clara squeezed her eyes shut against the burst of light. A last resort, a desperate gamble. "Breathe, think of home," she tensed, straining against the darkness, raising her hands one last time as she felt the energy pulsing beneath her skin. If only she could harness that, the love, the courage. With every ounce of strength left, Clara grappled with the horrifying truth whispering through the shadows. They were not just reflections of fear. They were twisted fragments of her mind, her regrets pulling her deeper into the void. "Em!" she screamed as she felt a shuddering tremor twist within her. "Don't let go. We have to fight." But before she could take another breath, the light burst forth, a vaporous energy crackling through the air, illuminating the cavern of despair that enclosed them. Suddenly, everything snapped. The darkness bore down on them with a roar, and Clara accepted her fate as it engulfed them, wondering if this was truly the end. She felt Emily's hand slip, just for a moment. And then silence. Not the comforting silence of a peaceful home, but the suffocating stillness of an empty void, where even shadows had forgotten to roam. Clara blinked, her heart hammering loudly in her ears as the oppressive weight lifted ever so slightly. Where were they? Had they survived? Or were they trapped in another layer of this sinister nightmare? A distant flicker caught her eye, a soft glow, tremulous yet inviting. Clara sensed a movement, a shadow lingering just beyond the light. As they dared to step toward it, a chilling laugh echoed behind them, a sound so familiar, instantly recognizable. The true horror had only just begun. Clara blinked into the strange light, its warmth brushing across her skin like a whisper. The glow pulsated, beckoning them forward while the shadows shifted, slinking back as if afraid of the brightness. She felt Emily's grip tighten around her wrist. "Mom, where are we?" Emily's voice quavered, fear lacing her words. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we have to stick together. We will find a way out," Clara assured her, though her heart twisted with uncertainty. The flickering light danced around them, revealing crumbling walls adorned with peeling paint, the remnants of a room long forgotten. It felt wrong, as if the house itself was breathing, alive with memories yet to be unearthed. Clara moved cautiously, scanning the space for signs of life, wondering just how deep they had fallen into this darkness. "Hello?" she called out, hoping for an answer, any sign they weren't alone. An unnerving silence answered, broken only by the soft thud of their footsteps on worn floorboards. Each sound echoed unnaturally, amplifying the anxious beat of her heart. "Mom, what if?" Emily began, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if what?" Clara prompted, hating the flicker of dread creeping into her mind. "What if we're not alone?" The shadows rippled in response, a dark swarm lingering at the edges of the illuminated space. Clara could almost hear them slithering, plotting. Her skin prickled, and she felt the urge to retreat instead of press on. But Emily needed her strength. Together, Clara repeated under her breath, willing herself to move forward. As they stepped deeper into the room, an old mirror caught her eye, gracefully cracked but shimmering faintly beneath the veil of dust. It bore a striking resemblance to the one they had encountered before, where they faced the darkness. "Mom, look!" Emily pointed, her voice suddenly sharp with excitement. "Stay close," Clara warned, but her curiosity pulled her closer. The mirror shimmered, and Clara's reflection flickered erratically. But it wasn't just her. She could see Emily beside her, their faces morphing through expressions of fear, confusion, and then a flicker of something sinister. "Do you see them?" Clara asked, heart racing. She leaned closer, gazing into the glass. It was as if they were being watched by the mirror itself. Shapes moved behind their reflection, writhing and shifting. "See what?" Emily asked, a tremor of uncertainty creeping into her voice. "Figures trapped. They're trapped in there." Clara's breath hitched as horror surged through her. "We need to go." But Emily didn't move. She stood enraptured by the mirror's depths, her face paling. "They want to get out. Mom, they're calling to me, can't you hear them?" "No, no, no," Clara cried, grabbing Emily's shoulders. "Those voices are lies. We have to leave." Suddenly, the crack in the mirror expanded, a gaping maw pulling at the light, drawing the shadows in. Clara stumbled back, yanking Emily away just as a shadowy hand burst forth, clawing at the air, desperately reaching for them. Clara turned, panic igniting her actions. "Run!" she shouted, propelling them both toward the door, but the shadows twisted, denying their escape. "Mom, we can't!" Emily screamed, her eyes wide with terror, tears spilling down her cheeks. Before Clara could respond, the shadows surged forward, engulfing the light and plunging them into suffocating darkness once more. The laughter echoed again, taunting, reverberating around them, merging with frantic whispers of forgotten souls. Clara's heart pounded in her chest, and she felt the cold sweat slicking her skin. They had been so close she couldn't let them be consumed. And just when she thought all hope was lost, something shifted in the darkness, a flicker of recognition sparking within her mind. "We can't just run, we need to fight back." But as she took a step forward, the shadows hesitated, and she could feel a presence looming, something watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. A chilling breeze ingested her breath, and just before she could gather her resolve, the horrid laughter crescendoed, drowning out her thoughts, stealing away her strength. Then she felt it, the familiar tug, the warning that something was about to shatter. What awaited them in the depths of the shadows? Clara clenched her fists, bracing for the horror yet to come. Would the darkness finally consume them both? Clara's breath caught in her throat. The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating, drowning out her thoughts. The whispers sharpened into a cacophony, slashing through her resolve, words curling into a twisted language she couldn't comprehend. "Mom!" Emily cried, her voice a fragile thread against the rising storm of sound. Clara couldn't see her face in the black void, but she felt her daughter's fear brimming, almost palpable. "Hold on to me," Clara shouted, fighting against the panic rising in her chest. She reached blindly, her heart thundering, searching for Emily's small hand. In the swirling dark, she finally found it, icy and trembling. The shadows seemed to shift again, a ripple of motion from the depths that sent fresh waves of dread skittering down her spine. They couldn't just stand there. This darkness was a living thing, hungry and alive, ready to swallow them whole. With a fierce yank, Clara pulled Emily close. "We have to move. Keep your eyes on the light." They hurried, the once welcoming glow now a distant flicker ahead. Every step felt like wading through molasses, the shadows reaching toward them, clouds of darkness swirling like angry whirlwinds. Clara pushed ahead, feeling the chill invade her bones. From the corner of her eye, she caught fleeting glimpses of movement, flashes of gray, twisted forms flickering in the gloom. They bore expressions of anguish, mouths open in silent screams, lost souls trapped in the mirror. A cold knot twisted in her stomach. Could they truly be free? "Mom, please." Emily's voice quaked, and Clara risked a glance back. The shadows surged, elongating their forms into monstrous shapes that twisted and contorted. Clara's grip tightened as she pulled Emily alongside her, their footsteps a frantic dance against the threat behind them. "We can't look back. Focus on the light, remember?" Clara heard her own voice, but it sounded distant, as if someone else was speaking. With each step forward, Clara felt like they were slipping deeper into a nightmare. The laughter that had filled the void twisted into a seductive whisper, brushing against her ears, each taunt echoing the depths of her own fears. "Clara, Clara, join us," the voices cooed, sweet and sinister, making her skin crawl. "No," Clara shouted, summoning everything within her to block it out. "We're not yours to take." But doubt crept in, a creeping vine wrapping around her thoughts. What if they were lost, truly? A flash of light flickered in the distance, bright enough to draw them in like moths. "Hold on," Clara shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins, and they sprinted toward it, hearts racing, breathless with desperation. As they raced forward, the light began to pulse wildly, a heartbeat in the dark. Just a few more strides and they could break free. But suddenly, the floorboards beneath them creaked ominously, a groaning warning. With a sickening lurch, a section of the ground gave way, plunging them into blackness again. Clara felt a rush of air, the oppressive shadows curling tightly around them, the malicious laughter returning, louder and more mocking than before. Something sharp brushed against her leg, and she stumbled slightly, adrenaline surging anew. "What was that?" she gasped. But there was no time for answers. "Mom, I can't," Emily cried, her voice raw and cracking. "Just keep moving," Clara urged, pressing forward, determination battling the rising fear. The pulsing light dimmed again, flickering as if it too was uncertain. Clara felt an overwhelming sense of dread settle into her stomach. Was the light fading? "Mom, I'm scared," Emily sobbed, echoing Clara's own sentiments. The shadowy figures flared around them, their reach more insistent, hungry. "We can't stop now. We can't." The shadows shifted, tugging at them, pulling them back into the darkness. Clara felt her strength waning, her mind racing with fear and desperation. They had to escape, but how? With one final sprint, Clara lunged into the light, dragging Emily with her. But just as they reached the edge, a force so strong pressed back against them, ready to tear them apart. "Stay with me," Clara cried, feeling the shadows claw at her heels. The world twisted wildly, spinning in chaos. As something cried out from the darkness, a sound deep and resonating that they couldn't decipher. And in that moment of panic, Clara's resolve shattered like glass. "What do you want from us?" she shouted into the void, praying for something, anything. Silence fell, an unsettling pause, thick like fog, before a chilling reply echoed back, the malevolent laughter now a sinister whisper. Everything in that suffocating stillness, Clara knew they stood before something far worse than they had ever imagined. As the darkness began to swallow them, Clara's heart raced with fear, and she gripped Emily's hand tighter. There had to be a way out, but they were running out of time. What awaited them next in this shadowed realm? The answer lay somewhere within the growing darkness, as familiar echoes began to surface. Would they find their way back to the light before it was too late? The air trembled as the laughter faded to a low rumbling hum, vibrating in Clara's bones. She felt a tug at her consciousness, a beckoning that sent shivers rippling through her. The shadows pressed closer, their icy breath clawing at her skin, making her heart pound in panic. "Emily," Clara whispered, her voice almost lost in the oppressive din. "Stay close." She gripped her daughter's hand tighter, each of her fingers trembling against Emily's clammy palm. She strained her eyes in the swirling darkness, hoping for a sign, a hint of the light they had chased so desperately. But all that surrounded them were the twisted figures, their eyes glistening like jet-black stones, and the heavy curtain of shadows that loomed mercilessly. Then, slowly, Clara felt the ground shift beneath them. The decaying wooden boards creaked ominously, responding to the unseen force that writhed just below the surface like a beast awakened. Panic surged anew, and she gasped, "We have to find another way." Echoes of her own voice repeated, mocking her, as if the very darkness fed off her fear. She stumbled backward, dragging Emily with her. They needed to move. Every instinct screamed for retreat, but retreat led further into the unknown. Forward was where the light had been, at least what they thought was light. "Help us," Clara called out, desperation lacing her voice. "We're trapped." The shadows laughed, a hollow and dissonant sound that stole the breath from her lungs. Suddenly, the walls around them shivered, and a soft, bright glow flickered back into view. But it was different this time, pulsating with menace rather than warmth. What if it was a trick? What if they fell further into the void? "Mom, I can't," Emily whimpered, her small body shaking with fear. "Shoo, it's okay, Em. We need to be brave," Clara said, drawing in a ragged breath. She turned, scanning the darkness, searching for any escape. "We'll go to the light together." They hesitated, electricity crackling through the air, their instincts torn between the pull of the shadows and the allure of the glow. Clara's mind raced, images flashing like broken movie reels, fragments of memories, faces of loved ones, moments she wanted to hold on to. "Clara," the voice was soft, familiar. A chill gripped her heart as she turned towards it, but there stood only shadows, dark, whispering current like smoke, curling around the empty air. "What do you want?" Clara shouted into the void with renewed determination. "Join us, become part of the light." The voice felt seductive, wrapping around her thoughts like a warm blanket, too warm, too inviting. "No," Clara shouted, shaking her head violently as if physically tossing off the seductive whispers. "No, get away from us." With a surge of adrenaline, she pulled Emily to the flickering light. Now it beckoned, almost like a portal, alive with the screams of souls trapped and tormented. They moved forward, the desires of the shadows clawing at their backs. "Oh God, please," Emily cried. "Please don't let them take me." Clara squeezed her daughter's hand tighter. "They won't, I promise." But as they approached the light, Clara froze, caught in a net of dread and revelation. The glow was revealing shapes, faces twisted in anguish, eyes filled with misery lost in the void. These weren't the souls she had pictured as innocent victims. These were the damned. "Mom, we can't go in there," Emily sobbed, pulling back in horror. The shadows writhed, laughter echoing from all sides. Clara felt the ground shift again beneath her, as though it wanted to consume them both. Whispers tell of a choice, a disembodied voice intoned, drawing out the words like a long, excruciating breath. What will you sacrifice to escape? Clara's stomach nodded. The air thickened. What did they want? What would she have to give? Emily, we must decide. Clara shouted, her breath hitching. Each second stretched, the shadows closing in, urging them to choose, to feel the weight of despair. Mom, I don't want to lose you. Panic surged like a tidal wave, crashing against her heart. Neither do I, but we must move or we will be lost forever. Yet as they faced the pulsing glow, the tendrils of darkness wrapped tighter around them, whispering dark promises that no one should ever hear. Clara knew she had to choose, but could she sacrifice the very essence of who they were to escape? A silence wrapped around them, a final heartbeat in a world of shadows. Would their bond hold strong, or would they drown in despair? Then Clara realized with a sinking heart. It wasn't just her life at stake, it was Emily's, too. And the choice would not just shatter their futures, it would entwine them in darkness forever. What fate awaited them now? Would Clara embrace the darkness for the sake of salvation, or fight against it to hold onto the light? The answer slipped further out of reach, entwined in the web of shadows that desired them both. Clara blinked, caught in the chaos of shadows and whispers that clawed at her sanity. The air around her chilled, thickening with the darkness that pressed in, eager to consume them whole. The question lingered, heavy and heart-wrenching. What would she sacrifice to escape? Mom! Emily's voice trembled. Memories flashed through Clara's mind like lightning. Sunlit days in the garden, laughter shared over dinner, and the warmth of skin pressed against hers in embrace. Those moments anchored her, and they ignited a fierce flame of determination. We won't be lost, Clara shouted, trying to drown out the cacophony around her. Together we can break free. Emily nodded, fear still lurking in her eyes. But something shifted beneath the surface, a spark igniting within her. Focus on me. Think of the garden, Clara urged, her heart soaring with renewed hope. The shadows shivered, momentarily hesitating as their connection thrummed, bright and warm against the encroaching cold. Clara held onto that warmth, pulling Emily closer. Keep the light in your heart. She felt the tether strengthen, a bond woven through desperation and love. But the darkness roared, a twisted creature desperate to reclaim its hold. The voices rose, wicked and persuasive, clamoring for Clara's attention. Give in. Embrace the shadows, they hissed, teasing her fears. They throbbed, fingers of darkness curling at her skin, taunting her with visions of doom. No, Clara screamed, forcing herself forward, eyes locked on that flickering light. It pulsed against the darkness, a beacon guiding them back to hope. Mom, I can't, Emily wailed, tearing at the shadows that lashed out, nearly separating them. Yes, you can, Clara cried, pushing against the pull of despair. A surge of defiance coursed through her, igniting every part of her being. We're more than this darkness, more than its lies. The air shimmered, and in that heartbeat of clarity, Clara caught sight of a flicker beyond the shadows. The exit and escape shone with the brilliance of possibilities waiting just out of reach. The thought sent adrenaline rushing through her veins. Run! Clara shouted. To the light. With desperation fueling them, they sprinted toward the beacon, dodging shadows that lashed out like vengeful spirits. The closer they got, the more the darkness writhed and fought. But Clara pressed onward, drawing strength from the bond they shared. Don't look back, Em. We're going home. Emily's tiny hand tightened around hers, their fingers interlocking in a fierce grip as they raced towards the light. Clara could feel the shadows clawing at their heels, but she refused to falter. With every step, clarity grew. The unyielding power of their love fueled the escape, pushing the darkness back from the edges of her mind. Finally, they reached the light, warm and welcoming, bursting like a starlit dawn around them. Clara stepped forward, pulling Emily into the warmth, and as they crossed the threshold, the shadows erupted into a horrid shriek. For a blink, a moment suspended in time, Clara felt the weight of the darkness release its grip. Then it slipped away behind them, a tide pulling back into the abyss, vanquished by the light of their love. They fell through out of the shadows and back into the day. Clara gasped as daylight washed over their skin, a brilliant explosion of warmth that obliterated the nightmare they had endured. "Mom, are we safe?" Emily whispered, her breath shaky as she looked around, wide-eyed and trembling. Clara knelt down, pulling Emily into a tight embrace, heart racing in relief. "Yes, sweetheart, we're safe." She could feel the strength of their bond pulsating through her. The air smelled of blooming flowers. The sun was bright above them. They were on the familiar, sun-soaked paths of their garden, untouched by the horrors that had threatened to consume them. "Mom, do you think the house will ever haunt us again?" Emily asked, voice small. Clara shook her head, running her fingers through Emily's hair, a soothing gesture that resonated with the peace settling within her. "No," she assured, "we faced it together, and together we can face anything." Just then, the wind picked up, softly rustling through the leaves, echoing a promise of healing, renewal, and hope. As they stood together, embracing the warmth of the sun, Clara knew they had emerged from their darkest hour. The shadows may linger in the corners of their minds, but now, they would face tomorrow as champions together, unyielding against the darkness. "Let us go plant some flowers," she suggested, pulling Emily along. "Yeah." Emily's excitement sparked through her, infectious and bright, and as they walked down the garden path, laughter filling the air, Clara felt the shadows retreat further into the distance, knowing that they had claimed their triumph. Together, they had rewritten their narrative, each step forward a declaration against the darkness that tried to swallow them whole. Instantly aware that life would always pose challenges, Clara also felt an unwavering certainty. The light they forged together could withstand anything the shadows could conjure. And with that feeling, that fierce, unwavering love, they walked into the golden day, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Now, if you made it this far, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Only true fans understand the importance of helping the channel grow. Don't miss out.